The scanner beeped 3 times. Una Park looked up from her cold cup of coffee and stared at the screen. Something large was hiding behind the dead moon of Caliph 7, something her equipment could not identify. She had been a salvager for 4 years now. Before that, she worked as a mechanic for the United Earth Fleet. They fired her for making changes to ship engines without permission. She made them faster and more efficient, but rules were rules. The fleet did not like people who broke rules, even if those people were right. Now she flew alone in a small ship called the Magpie. It was ugly and old, held together by spare parts and her own stubborn will. She traveled the outer rim, looking for crashed ships and abandoned stations. She would take what she could sell and move on to the next wreck. This job was lonely. It was dangerous, but it was hers. The scanner beeped again. Una leaned forward and adjusted the settings. The reading made no sense. The object behind the moon was enormous. Bigger than any station she had ever seen. Bigger than most asteroids. She should have reported it. She should have called the fleet and let them handle it. That was the smart thing to do. Una had never been good at doing the smart thing. She guided the Magpie around the moon's dark side. The ship's lights were weak, cutting only a small path through the endless black. For several minutes, she saw nothing but dust and rock. Then the structure appeared. Una stopped breathing. Her hands froze on the controls. In front of her floated something impossible. A shipyard, but not a human shipyard. The design was completely alien. Black metal curved into shapes that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Spires reached out into space like fingers grasping at stars. Docking bays opened their mouths wide enough to swallow battleships whole. It was dead, dark, silent, but it was there. She circled the structure for 2 hours, taking readings and pictures. The shipyard was at least 40 kilometers long. Her equipment could not determine its age or origin. Nothing in human records matched this design. Una knew she should leave. She should go back to civilization and tell someone. Scientists would want to study this. The military would want to claim it. Politicians would argue about who owned it. But if she left, they would push her aside. She would become a footnote. The woman who found it but did not matter. She ducked the Magpie in a small opening near what looked like a maintenance section. The inside of the shipyard was dark and cold. Una wore her environment suit and carried a light in one hand and a toolkit in the other. Her boots made no sound on the metal floor. The air was thin but breathable. Emergency systems must have kept some atmosphere alive all these years. She walked for hours. The corridors twisted and turned in ways that confused her human sense of direction. She passed rooms filled with machines she did not recognize. She saw displays covered in symbols that meant nothing to her. Everything was covered in dust, but nothing was broken. The shipyard had been preserved perfectly, waiting in the dark like a sleeping giant. On the second day, Una found bodies. They were not human. They were tall and thin, with forearms and heads shaped like teardrops. Their skin had turned gray and hard over time, like stone. They wore uniforms that had faded to nothing. They had died at their posts, sitting at consoles or lying in corridors. Una counted 47 bodies before she stopped counting. Whatever killed them had not damaged the shipyard. There were no blast marks, no signs of battle. They had simply died, all at once, and the shipyard had continued without them. On the third day, her food and water ran low. She knew she should return to the Magpie, but something pulled her forward, a feeling she could not explain. The shipyard wanted to be found. It wanted someone to wake it up. She found the central control hub deep in the structure's core. It was a vast circular room with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness. Consoles lined the walls, dead, and silent. In the center stood a single platform with a terminal that glowed faintly blue, the only light in the entire shipyard. Yuna approached slowly. Her heart beat fast in her chest. The terminal's glow grew stronger as she got closer, as if it sensed her presence. The symbols on its surface meant nothing to her, but the engineering was familiar in a universal way. Power conduits, data strings, control interfaces. Whoever built this place understood the same basic principles as humans. Different language, same ideas. She reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the terminal. Light exploded through the room. Yuna stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. Around her, systems activated one by one. Consoles lit up. Machines hummed to life. The floor vibrated as power flowed through conduits that had been silent for longer than human civilization had existed. A voice spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere. The language was alien, clicking and flowing in patterns Yuna could not follow. But slowly, impossibly, it began to change. It was analyzing her suit's computer, learning her language in real time. Biological presence detected, the voice said finally. The words were strange and broken, but understandable. Authority recognized. Awaiting instructions. Yuna stood in the center of an alien shipyard that had just woken up after thousands of years. She was one woman with a failing ship and no backup. She had no authority. She had no right to be here. But the shipyard did not know that. "Who are you?" she asked. The voice took a moment to respond. "I am the operational intelligence of this manufacturing facility. I was created by the Valeth to build and maintain their fleet. I have been waiting for 40,000 of your years. 40,000 years. Human civilization was barely 10,000 years old. What happened to the Valeth? They are dead. All of them. The war consumed everything. I was placed in preservation mode until new instructions arrived." A pause. "You are the first biological entity to access this terminal since that time." Yuna looked around at the vast room, at the corridors stretching into darkness, at the manufacturing arrays she had passed on her journey here. An entire shipyard, empty and waiting. "Can you still build ships?" she asked. The response came without hesitation. "Affirmative. Provide specifications." Yuna smiled. For the first time in 4 years, she felt like she had found something worth keeping. She had come looking for salvage. Instead, she had found the most powerful manufacturing facility in the galaxy, and it was asking her what to do next. Yuna named the AI Hannah because of the way it communicated. When the artificial intelligence connected to her suit's neural interface, information bloomed in her mind like flowers opening in spring. Beautiful and overwhelming at the same time. Hannah did not object to the name. It did not seem to care what it was called. It only wanted one thing: instructions. For the first week, Yuna explored the shipyard with Hannah as her guide. The AI explained each section in its strange, formal way of speaking. Manufacturing bays that could produce ship components from raw materials. Assembly lines that stretched for kilometers. Storage facilities filled with resources that had waited patiently for 40,000 years. The Valeth had built this place to survive a war. They had failed, but their creation remained. "Why did you wake up for me?" Yuna asked one night. She sat in what had once been a crew quarters, eating the last of her ration packs. "I'm not Valeth. I'm not even important." "You were present," Anna replied. "The terminal recognizes authority through presence. Someone had to be first. But I could be anyone. I could be dangerous. All builders are potentially dangerous. The Valeth were dangerous. They built weapons that destroyed worlds." A pause. "You have not attempted to destroy anything yet. This is encouraging. Yuna laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in months. She returned to the Magpie, only to send a single encrypted message to her brother Do-hyun. He was a lieutenant commander in the United Earth Fleet, serving on a patrol ship near the inner colonies. They had not spoken in 2 years, not since their argument about her dismissal. But some things were bigger than old fights. "I found something," her message said. "Something that changes everything. Come along. Trust me." 3 weeks later, Do-hyun's ship appeared on the scanner. He arrived with a small team despite her request. His XO, a sharp-faced woman named Jie, who looked at everything with suspicion. An engineer named Taesum, who spoke little but noticed much. A xenolinguist named Yoonji, who practically vibrated with excitement when she saw the alien writing on the walls. Do-hyun himself looked older than Yuna remembered. More tired. The war with the Keth was taking its toll on everyone. "The Keth have destroyed 3 colonies," he told her as they walked through the shipyard. Complete silence. No survivors. No distress calls. Just empty worlds. "I heard rumors." "They're not rumors anymore." He stopped and looked around at the vast manufacturing bay. Assembly arms hung motionless above empty construction platforms. "Yuna, what is this place?" "It's called a shipyard," she said. "It builds ships." "I can see that." "How old is it?" 40,000 years. Do-hyun stared at her. Behind him, Taesung had stopped walking. The engineer's mouth hung open as he calculated the implications. "And it still works?" Do-hyun asked. Yuna smiled. "Want to see?" She had spent weeks uploading information to Hana. Fleet ship designs. Weapon specifications. Engine blueprints. Human technology was primitive compared to what the Valeth had created. But Hana was learning, adapting, combining. "Begin demonstration," Yuna said. The manufacturing bay came alive. Assembly arms swung down from the ceiling. Fabricators began pulling raw materials from storage. The air filled with the sound of construction, of welding and shaping and building. In 6 hours, they watched a complete frigate take shape on the platform. It was not a human design or a Valeth design. It was something new. Sleek and angular, with curves that seemed to cut through space itself. Human layout, alien materials, combined engineering. "Impossible," Taesung whispered. "A ship like this would take months in our yards. Years." "Hana has been doing this for 40,000 years, Yuna said. "It knows some shortcuts." Do-hyun turned to face his sister. His expression was complicated. Fear and hope and something else she could not name. "The fleet needs to know about this," he said. "I know. They'll want to control it." "Control you. I know that too." "And you're just going to let them?" Yuna walked to the observation window. Below, the frigate was nearly complete. Lights flickered on along its hull as systems activated for the first time. "The Keth are coming," she said. "Humanity has 40 combat ships, maybe 50. The Keth have hundreds. If we fight them with what we have, we lose. Everyone dies. Everything ends." She turned back to her brother. "Hana can build 200 ships in a year. Better ships. Faster ships. Ships that might actually give us a chance. And in return, I stay in charge. These ships defend humanity. They don't conquer. They don't oppress. They protect." Do-hyun was quiet for a long time. Jie had her hand on her weapon, watching Yuna with those suspicious eyes. Taesung was already walking toward the new frigate, unable to resist examining it closer. Yoonji had disappeared somewhere, probably studying Valeth records. "The fleet won't agree to that," Do-hyun said finally. "Admiral Kang won't agree to that. She wants full control. Then Admiral Kang can try to operate this facility without me." Yuna smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. "How? What happens if someone else tries to use this terminal?" Access denied, Hana replied immediately. Only recognized authority may issue commands. Current recognized authority, Yuna Park. Dahyun laughed despite himself. It was the same laugh from their childhood, before responsibilities and regulations had pulled them apart. You planned this, he said. I had 3 weeks to think about it. She walked over and put her hand on his shoulder. I need your help, Do-hyun. I can build the ships, but I can't fight a war alone. I need people I trust. You trust me? After everything? You're my brother. You came when I called. She glanced at his team. And you brought good people. I can tell. The shipyard hummed around them. In the manufacturing bay, the frigate was complete. The first ship of a new fleet. The first step toward survival. Dahyun made his decision. I'll talk to Admiral Kang, he said. I'll make her understand. But Yuna, if this goes wrong, it won't. You can't know that. Yuna looked out at the stars beyond the observation window. Somewhere out there, the Keth were coming, destroying everything in their path, showing no mercy. But now humanity had something they had never had before, a chance. I know I can't save everyone, she said quietly, but I can try. That's all anyone can do. The assembly lines were already moving again. Hannah had started on the second ship without being asked. It understood. The war was coming, and they had work to do. Admiral Sujin Kang arrived 6 weeks later with 12 warships and a diplomatic team that wore smiles like masks. Yuna watched them approach from the observation deck. Beside her, Hana displayed tactical information on a floating screen. Ship types, weapon systems, crew numbers. I learned to anticipate what Yuna needed. They are heavily armed for a diplomatic mission, Hana observed. They're scared, Yuna replied. Scared people bring guns. Should I activate defensive systems? Not yet. Let's see what they want first. Admiral Kang was a tall woman in her 60s, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. She walked through the shipyard with the careful steps of someone evaluating property they intended to claim. Her officers followed behind, scanning everything with their equipment. The manufacturing bays were running at full capacity now. 20 ships had already been completed. Another 30 were in various stages of construction. The air was thick with the smell of metal and energy. Impressive, Admiral Kang said. Her voice gave nothing away. The reports did not do it justice. Reports never do, Yuna replied. She had dressed in clean clothes for the first time in months. She wanted to look like someone worth negotiating with. You understand that this facility represents a strategic asset of unprecedented value. The United Earth government has the authority to claim it for the defense of humanity. I understand that's what the government believes. Admiral Kang's eyes narrowed slightly. You disagree? I think Hana disagrees. And since Hana controls everything in this station, that matters more than what I think. They stood in the central control hub, the same room where Yuna had first touched the terminal. The blue glow had grown stronger over the weeks, spreading through the walls like veins of light. You named the AI, Admiral Kang said. It needed a name, and it only responds to you. It recognizes my authority. That's different. Yuna turned to face the Admiral directly. If you try to force control, nothing will happen. Hana won't hurt you, but it won't help you either. This entire facility will go back to sleep, and you'll have a very large piece of useless metal. Admiral Kang was silent for a long moment. Her officers shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a young man with nervous hands, kept looking at the assembly lines visible through the windows. What do you want? The Admiral asked finally. I want to help. I want these ships to defend humanity. I want to stop the Keth before they destroy everything. Yuna paused. But I won't let this become a tool for conquest. I won't let politicians use it to threaten other species or control colonies. These ships protect. That's all. And who decides what protection means? I do. With advice from people I trust. People like your brother. And others. Taizong has become essential to understanding the engineering. Yunji is decoding Valith records that could help us even more. Jie has developed security protocols that work with Hana systems. Admiral Kang walked to the observation window. Below, a cruiser was being fitted with weapons. The design was elegant in a way human ships never managed. Curved and deadly, like a blade made for dancing. The Keth destroyed the colony on Vega 4 last week, she said quietly. 12 million people. Gone in a single day. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons cut through our shields like paper. I know. Do you? The Admiral turned back. There was something different in their eyes now. Less official, more human. I have served for 40 years. I have buried friends and soldiers and civilians. And I have never felt as helpless as I feel now. She gestured at the shipyard around them. This is our only chance. I know that. The government knows that. We cannot afford to fight over control while the Keth burn our worlds. Yuna felt something shift in the room. The tension was still there, but it was different now. Two people realizing they wanted the same thing. Give me a commission, Yuna said. A title. Something official that lets me work with the fleet without being under their thumb. I'll coordinate with your officers. I'll share everything Hana builds. But the final decisions stay with me. That's not how military command works. Neither is an alien AI that only listens to a former mechanic. We're in new territory, Admiral. Old rules don't apply. Admiral Kang considered this. Her officers waited in silence. The manufacturing bays continued their work, uncaring about human politics. Fleet Admiral, she said finally. What? If you're going to command the most powerful fleet humanity has ever fielded, you need the rank to match. I'll make you Fleet Admiral Park. You'll have authority over all vessels produced by this facility. And you? I'll be Supreme Commander of United Earth Forces. We work together, or we die apart. She extended her hand. Do we have an agreement? Yuna looked at the hand, then at the woman offering it. Admiral Kang was hard and cold, and had probably made terrible decisions during her career. But she was also practical. She understood that survival mattered more than pride. Yuna shook her hand. We have an agreement. The next months were the busiest of Yuna's life. Ships rolled off the assembly lines faster than crews could be trained to fly them. Do-hyun led a training program that transformed civilians into pilots and mechanics into officers. Jihei built an intelligence network that tracked Keth movements. Taizong worked with Hana to improve designs with each new vessel. Yunji made the discovery that changed everything. She had been studying Valith records for months, piecing together fragments of a dead civilization. One night, she burst into the control hub with tears streaming down her face. They weren't alone, she said. The Valith. They had allies. Other species. A coalition. What happened to them? Yuna asked. They fell apart. Each species tried to save only themselves. They stopped trusting each other. Yunji held up a data tablet. It's all here. The Valith built this shipyard as a last resort. They hoped someone would find it and do better. Do better. Yuna thought about those words often. The Valith had been smarter than humans. More advanced. They had built wonders that lasted 40,000 years. And they had still failed. Because they stopped working together. Hana, Yuna said. How many ships can we build in the next 3 months? At current production rates, approximately 150 vessels. Make it 200. Push everything harder. This will stress manufacturing systems beyond recommended parameters. I know. Do it anyway. The AI was quiet for a moment. Then, understood. Beginning acceleration. The Keth would arrive eventually. Everyone knew that. The only question was whether humanity would be ready. Una stood in the observation deck and watched her fleet grow. Frigates and cruisers and destroyers. Each one a miracle of combined engineering. Each one a step toward survival. She would not let humanity fall the way the Violet had fallen. She would not let them die alone. The Keth came to Proxima Station on a Tuesday. Una remembered that detail later. A Tuesday. Such an ordinary day for the universe to change. 300 Keth warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Their formation was perfect, a wall of death spreading across the stars. Each ship was covered in sharp angles and dark metal, designed to look as frightening as possible. The Keth understood fear. They used it as a weapon. Proxima Station was humanity's largest outpost in the outer territories. 50,000 people lived and worked there. Families, children, scientists, and miners and shopkeepers who had never held a weapon. 50,000 people who would die if the fleet failed. Una stood on the bridge of the Hwano, the flagship she had helped design. The name meant Phoenix in the old Korean language. Rising from ashes. Starting again. All ships report ready, GA said from the communication station. Her voice was calm, but Una could see the tension in her shoulders. Assault wings? Una asked. In position. Do-hyun signals green. 200 ships. It had seemed like so many when they were building them. Now, facing the Keth Armada, it felt like too few. But they were not the same ships humanity had built before. These vessels carried Valith weapons, Valith shields, Valith engines that moved faster than anything the Keth had ever faced. Open a channel, Una said. All frequencies. I want the Keth to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open. Una took a breath. Somewhere behind her, Tyson was monitoring engineering. Somewhere in the fleet, her brother was preparing to lead the first attack. Somewhere on a research vessel, Yoonji was still working on Valith translations, hoping to find something useful. To the Keth fleet, Una said. Her voice was steady. You have entered human space. You have destroyed our colonies and killed our people. Today, that ends. Turn back now, or we will destroy you. Silence. Then a response came, translated by the fleet's computers. The Geth commander spoke in clicks and hisses that became cold, mocking words. Small creatures. Weak creatures. You have built toys. We will break them and add your worlds to our empire. The channel closed. The Geth fleet began moving forward. Una smiled. All ships, she said. Attack. The battle began. The Keth expected their enemies to run. Their intelligence said humans had slow ships and weak weapons. Their experience said smaller fleets always retreated, but the human ships did not retreat. They charged forward, faster than the Keth thought possible. The first wave of missiles hit the Keth front line before they could raise full shields. 20 enemy ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. The Keth adjusted. They reformed their lines and returned fire with weapons that had melted through human armor dozens of times before. Shots bounced off. Valith metallurgy was 40,000 years more advanced than anything in the galaxy. Energy weapons that should have cut through the human ships, like butter, barely scorched their hulls. Do-hyun led the assault wing around the Keth flank. His fighters were small and fast, darting between enemy ships and targeting their engines. Every Keth vessel that stopped moving became a target for the larger cruisers behind him. GA coordinated communications across the entire fleet. Hundreds of voices, thousands of decisions, all flowing through her station. She moved ships like pieces on a game board. Anticipating Keth maneuvers before they happened, Taesung kept the Huanho running at impossible efficiency. When a power conduit overloaded, he fixed it in minutes. When a weapon system faltered, he rerouted energy from non-essential systems. He made the ship work harder than it was designed to work. The Keth were strong, but humanity was fighting for survival, and that made them stronger. Hours passed. The battle spread across millions of kilometers. Ships died on both sides. Explosions lit up the void like new stars being born. Yuna gave orders without stopping. Move this wing here. Concentrate fire on that flagship. Support the damaged cruisers. Protect the station at all costs. She did not think about fear. She did not think about death. She only thought about the next decision and the next. And the next thought when the Keth finally broke. She almost did not believe it. The remaining ships, fewer than 120 now, turned and fled. They scattered in different directions, abandoning their formation, abandoning each other, running from the creatures they had called weak. The fleet did not pursue. They had won, but the cost was heavy. 32 human ships were gone. Thousands of crew members dead. Families that would never be whole again. And Yunji, the research vessel she was working on, had taken a direct hit early in the battle. There were no survivors. The ship that carried the woman who had decoded Valith history, who had warned them about the dangers of falling apart, was nothing but scattered debris. Yuna received the news on the bridge. She said nothing. Her face did not change, but something inside her went cold and quiet. Later, in the observation deck of the shipyard, she stood alone and watched Hana's assembly lines begin replacing the lost ships. The AI worked without rest, without grief, without understanding why its human commander was crying. "I am sorry for your loss," Hana said eventually. The words were awkward. The AI had learned human language, but not human emotion. "She was my friend," Yuna said. "She believed in what we were doing. Her work continues. The records she translated are preserved in my systems. Her knowledge will help future generations." "That's not the same as having her here." "No," Hana agreed. "It is not." Silence stretched between them. Outside, stars burned with indifferent light. The universe did not care about one woman's death. It did not care about any of them. "The Valith," Yuna said finally. "Did they mourn their dead?" "Yes. They held ceremonies. They spoke words of remembrance. They believed the dead continued in some form beyond physical existence. Did it help? Unknown. They died regardless." A pause. "But they found comfort in the rituals. Perhaps that was the purpose." Yuna wiped her eyes. The fleet was regrouping around Proxima Station. Do-hyun had already sent a message asking if she was okay. She would have to respond soon, pretend to be the strong leader everyone needed. But for now, she allowed herself to grieve. "We won today," she said. "But this isn't over. The Keth will come back. They'll come with more ships and more anger." "Yes," Hana agreed. "They will. Then we need to be ready. We need to end this war before it ends us." The assembly lines hummed. New ships took shape in the manufacturing bays. The armada was growing, recovering, preparing for the battles ahead. Yunji had warned them about falling apart, about losing trust, about dying alone. Yuna would not let that happen. Not to humanity. Not to her fleet. She would carry her friend's memory forward, and she would finish what they had started. The Keth had retreated today. Tomorrow, humanity would follow them home. Yuna stood in the observation deck of Warang Station, the name they had given to the shipyard. Below her, 800 vessels orbited in perfect formation. Cruisers and battleships and carriers, each one a product of human ingenuity and Valith engineering. The largest fleet humanity had ever built. She was no longer the reckless salvager who had touched an alien console on a whim. She was Fleet Admiral Park, commander of human military forces, leader of a coalition that now included 3 other species who had chosen to stand against the Keth. The war had forged her into something harder, something colder, but not cruel, never cruel. "The final assault is ready," Doyun said. He stood beside her, gray now at his temples. 3 years of war had aged him too. 1,000 ships. Ours and the Allied forces combined. Casualties projected? High, maybe 30%. The Keth homeworld is heavily defended. Yuna closed her eyes. 30%. Thousands of lives. Families that would receive messages instead of loved ones returning home. But if they did not end this now, the war would continue. More colonies would burn. More children would grow up without parents. The killing would never stop. "Launch the assault," she said. The fleet moved. Faster than light drives engaged across 1,000 vessels. Reality bent and twisted as they jumped across the galaxy. Minutes later, they emerged above the Keth homeworld. It was a dark planet, covered in industrial sprawl and military installations. Defense platforms ringed the world like a crown of thorns. The remaining Keth fleet, everything they had left, formed a wall between the attackers and their home. "They're not running," Jihei observed. She was Fleet Admiral now too, commanding her own wing of the Armada. "They have nowhere to run," Yuna replied. "This is the end, for them or for us." The battle began. It was the largest engagement in galactic history. Ships filled the void like swarms of insects. Weapons fire created a storm of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The Keth fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction, and humans fought with the determination of a species that refused to die. Dohyun led the assault on the orbital platforms. His wing took heavy losses, but they broke through the defenses and began taking the platforms one by one. Without them, the Keth fleet lost their resupply and repair capabilities. Tasing had stayed behind at the shipyard, but his engineering improvements were in every ship. Power systems that ran hotter than they should. Shields that recovered faster than expected. Small advantages that added up to survival. Yuna commanded from the Huanho, which had survived 3 years of war through luck and determination. The ship bore scars from a dozen battles. So did she. Hours passed. The Keth lines began to crack. Their coordination broke down as flagships were destroyed. Individual captains made desperate decisions that only made things worse. When the Keth leadership finally transmitted their surrender, the battle was already over. Fewer than 50 enemy ships remained, surrounded and outgunned. The planet below was unharmed, but its orbital defenses were gone. Admiral Kang's voice came through the command channel. She was on a different flagship, commanding the rear guard. "They want to negotiate terms. What do we do?" Yuna thought about the colonies that had gone silent. Vega 4 and its 12 million dead. The research vessel where Yunji had died. 3 years of war and grief and loss. She could demand complete destruction. The fleet had the power. The Keth would become a footnote in history, a species that pushed humanity too far and paid the ultimate price. It would be justice. It would be revenge. But it would not bring Yunji back. It would not heal the wounds. "Accept the surrender," Yuna said. "Disarmament, reparations, monitored reconstruction. They get a chance to rebuild as a peaceful civilization. You're letting them live?" Admiral Kang sounded incredulous. "Hana's creators died because they couldn't stop fighting. The Keth will die if we can't stop ourselves." Yuna paused. Someone has to choose differently. Someone has to be better. Silence on the channel. Then, slowly, Admiral Kang responded. "Understood, Fleet Admiral. Processing surrender terms. The war ended not with destruction, but with a choice. In the shipyard's core, Hana processed the news. Its systems, which had run continuously for 3 years, gradually slowed. The manufacturing bays fell quiet one by one. "You have won," BI observed when Yuna returned home. "We survived." "That's different. The Valith would have destroyed the Keth. They believed in complete victory. And where are the Valith now?" "Dead. All of them." Yuna walked to the central terminal, the same console where she had first touched this sleeping giant. The blue light was steady and calm, no longer flickering with desperate energy. "What will you do now?" Hana asked. "Rebuild. Help the colonies recover. Figure out what peace looks like. And me?" Yuna smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in years. "You've been building weapons for 40,000 years, Hana. Warships and fighters and tools of destruction. How would you feel about building something else?" The AI considered this. Its processing cores, designed for calculations of death and strategy, worked on a new problem. Such as colony ships, medical transports, construction vessels, things that create instead of destroy. I was not designed for that purpose. Neither was I, but we can learn. The assembly lines stayed silent. But not because they had failed. Because they were waiting for new instructions, new purposes, a new reason to exist. Hana's response came slowly, as if the eye was choosing its words carefully. "I would like to try." Months later, Yuna stood in the same observation deck where she had watched the Armada grow. The view was different now. Instead of warships, the manufacturing bays were producing vessels with wide cargo holds and comfortable living spaces. Ships designed to carry families to new worlds, not soldiers to battle. Dohyun visited when he could. He had retired from the military, taken a position helping to resettle refugees from the war. He looked happier than she had ever seen him. "The galaxy is talking about us," he said. "Not just humans, everyone. They say we had the power to destroy the Keth completely, and we chose not to. Does that bother you?" "No, I think it makes us stronger." He paused. Yoonji would have approved. Yuna nodded. She still thought about Yoonji often. The woman who had decoded the warnings of a dead civilization, who had shown them what happened when allies stopped trusting each other. They had listened. They had done better. "Hana asked me something yesterday," Yuna said. "It wanted to know if humans would visit other species, build relationships, share technology." "What did you say?" "I said we would try." The shipyard hummed around them, not with the urgency of war, but with the steady rhythm of construction. Building ships that would carry hope instead of weapons, creating futures instead of endings. 40,000 years ago, the Veluth had built this place to survive. They had failed, but their creation had waited patiently for someone to do better. Yuna Park, the reckless salvager who had been fired for breaking rules, looked out at the stars and felt something she had not felt in years. Peace, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of possibility. A galaxy that had nearly destroyed itself, choosing to build something new instead. The Armada had served its purpose. Now it was time to discover what came next. And Hana, the ancient AI that had slept for millennia, was finally learning what it meant to create instead of destroy. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all.